used to think printing my photos would be easy. You hit print and out comes the photo you saw on the screen. But mine looked awful, too dark, weird colours, just lifeless. I honestly thought something was broken, but it turned out I was just missing a few simple things that once learned will have you bashing out beautiful prints every single time. Before we get going today, this video is sponsored by Squarespace. If you need a domain name, a website, or an online store, make your next move with Squarespace. If you're new here, please do consider subscribing to the channel. I've got loads more printing videos to help you on your printing journey. I go out and do landscape photography in the field, and I do the odd camera review. So please do hit that subscribe button, and I will be eternally grateful to you. Now, without doubt, most photos these days are viewed on a screen. High contrast and saturated colour grab attention. However, when you transfer that to print, high contrast and big colour can die in a print. What you want to be aiming for is something a little more subtle, where the details show. So things like gentle shadows and subtle saturation, they're going to work so much better. Part of the challenge with transferring your photos from the screen to the page or the print is that you no longer have that backlit screen, which can show more details in shadowy areas and works really well with blown out highlight areas because that light's coming back towards you. But you lose all that in print. Be particularly careful with the sort of extremes of contrast. Ansel Adams came up with the zone system to help you with this. I've made a video about that before. Watch your shadow areas, because as they tip down into the black areas of your image, they're going to disappear. That any detail in your shadows could really easily disappear into the black if you're not careful, because once that black ink goes down and it's thick, you're not going to see any detail in there. Equally, on the highlights, if your highlights tip into pure white, then the printer is not going to put any ink down, because printers don't print white. They rely on the paper for that. So it's going to be the paper showing through. So if it's completely white, you'll almost sometimes see gaps where the printer just hasn't printed anything, and it can look ugly. Pictures like this, where you've got the sun in the image, can be really problematic. So when you're editing your pictures, be really careful that you still capture some detail in those highlight areas and in the darker shadowy areas that start to tip into black. So you've decided you want to print your photographs. I applaud you for that, but you go onto YouTube, you start looking at things, and all of a sudden you are overwhelmed with technical knowledge or technical instructions, and it feels like a lot. When I was first starting, this really put me off. So my advice would be to just start and not worry too much about the technical stuff. Don't sweat the technicals. There are some things that it's worth learning as you go. So a few things to think about that are going to make your life a little bit easier, but like I say, don't worry about, are having color profiles or ICC profiles that help your monitor or your computer match the paper that you're using with the printer that you're using. And if you load those into Lightroom, they can really help you then edit your photograph to get that color and contrast that we were talking about in the previous tip. Then the other thing people tell you is that you've got to then have a calibrated monitor and do soft proofing. And you don't. You don't need one. I did it for years without having a calibrated monitor. And I did it by not doing soft proofing, but by doing hard proofing. I created a hard copy in a small print. So I'm only using a small piece of paper with a small amount of ink, looking at it, deciding whether I liked it or not, and then committing to the bigger print. That's still a very fantastic way of doing it. But with the Canon software, you can use this pattern print feature, which gives you all the minor adjustments, and you can print out this as a hard copy and see exactly which one works for you, and then dial those adjustments in to make your final print. Great bit of software, highly recommended. Just get going, make mistakes, because you're going to learn from them and you're going to have fun as you go. Next up is the realization that paper choice is a creative decision rather than a technical one. Photographs can look good on all different types of paper, but it's really down to personal choice and what type of image you want to create as to what paper you choose. You basically have 3 types to choose from. They all often have different names, either a full matte paper where there's no reflection whatsoever, a semi-gloss or a luster paper that has a little bit of sheen. Then you've got full gloss, which is kind of your classic photographic looking paper. Those 3 things covered by a wide range of brands, but they all roughly fit into that bracket. It's down to personal choice. I love the matte paper and I love a semi-gloss. I very rarely use high gloss, maybe now and again for my water drop photographs, just because the high gloss makes the colours pop. You can get away with bigger saturation and contrast in high gloss, but for those subtle sort of fine art looking images that people love and they want to buy, then semi-gloss and matte paper work really well. My recommendation with paper is to try a few, but just from my personal experience and what I've settled on is to use a paper manufacturer called Canson Infinity. They're a French company. They've been making paper for literally hundreds of years. At the moment, I'm using this Arche 88 paper, which is a full matte paper, no reflection, and it's just the best paper I've ever used. The great thing about Canson Infinity as well is that they provide all their colour profiles, ICC profiles, on their website for a wide range of printers, particularly from Canon and from Epson. Another big lesson I've learned along the way, and I've fallen foul of this so many times, I've wasted so much paper and ink because of this, is it forces almost or encourages attention to detail. We are very used to looking at photos on a small screen, and you can only see so much detail on the small screen. You end up just kind of going through a slightly lazy workflow, and any imperfections and things will come out on the print. Water spots particularly don't look good. And when you commit to print, you want that thing to be as good as possible. So all those little minor defects that we might get away with on a screen really start to matter. Because you're committing physical resources and money, be careful about your edits. And also, you want to be a bit aware of distracting little elements that we might not notice on a screen because of that backlight. I've got an example just here on the screen now of this quite high contrast black and white. They still do work very well, particularly on matte paper. But if you look down towards the bottom, there is the farm there, which seems to have, I think they are solar panels on the roof, and they are reflecting a lot of light. Now, the white houses in there, I think, form part of the image, and they look great with that slightly highlighted area because I want the attention to go there. But the solar panels, I don't think look very good. It's confusing about what they are. They detract attention, and I want to remove them. You don't need to clone them out, though. All I'm going to do here is take a brush or use the object selection tool in Lightroom and then paint over it. It does this selection, and then I can just reduce the exposure a little bit. Maybe drag the highlights down, the whites down a touch. And as you can see, that suddenly disappears, and that distraction is gone without cloning anything out. Like I said earlier, we're just controlling our highlights and controlling our shadows. And we want this highlight to drift back into the shadows because we don't want that detail there. Attention to detail, attention to shadows, attention to highlights, and you'll end up with a better print. Another thing that encouraged me to do more printing is the very simple fact that you are transferring the value of your photography onto a piece of paper and into a physical thing. And then you can sell them. And selling a photograph in print is one of the most satisfying things you can do as a photographer. There's no doubt about it. You create something out of nothing and you sell it to a person who buys it with money that helps you out, and they get the value from your photography. It's just a beautiful thing, a beautiful thing. I've got a whole video about how to print, price, and sell your photography that I think you should check out. But in order to sell your photographs, you're going to need somewhere to do it. And for me, that is on my website. And by far, the best place for photographers to build their own website and sell their photographs is with Squarespace. And that's for a number of reasons. Firstly, it's just so easy to do. You can either use one of their beautiful templates to get you up and running, or you can use their new AI system called Design Intelligence, which can help you build a custom template so it's unique to you. And it will also help you write copy and descriptions for your photos. The second great thing about Squarespace is that it will grow with you. You can start with a simple gallery where your images are going to look big, bold, and beautiful, way better than they look small on social media. It will then grow with you, so you can turn your website into an online store to start selling things like books, or prints, or calendars, or workshops, or mugs. Anything you can think of that you want to sell, you can do that on Squarespace, and that's just as easy to do. You can create a member section to keep people coming back to your website. They have award-winning customer service, and I've used them for years and never looked back. So go to squarespace.com or hit that link down below and use the offer code FIRSTMAN. That's right, FIRSTMAN. Tell them that I sent you there. Then you get a new website, I get the credit for sending you there, and Squarespace gets a new customer. We all win. And it's a beautiful thing, and you'll get 10% off your first purchase. Another thing that helped me build my printing confidence over the years and start to appreciate the art that is printing is understanding borders, scale, and presentation. Because we're transferring that photograph from the digital space into the physical world. So we want it to look right. Let's start with borders, because most printers, decent photo printers, will give you the ability to create a border. With Canon printers, they can do borderless as well. I'll put this video up here where I compare 3 of the Canon photo printers. Check that out because I think it'll be really helpful. If you have a border on your piece of paper, it will give the image a little bit of breathing space. It will feel more complete and look like a piece of artwork on its own on that paper. Depending on the size of the border, that then makes it slightly easier to mount into a frame. And I quite like this sort of double border look on my prints sometimes. If you print borderless, when you come to mount it in a frame, you're going to have to overlap the mount onto the image a little bit, so you're going to lose a little bit of the image. But a borderless print does maximize the size of your paper and can look very, very impressive. Borderless also works really well when you're presenting it on a board. I've done that loads of times. I love doing it this way, printing big, putting it on a board. I think that's such a great way to present. The classic, though, is to frame it. But framing is exceptionally expensive if you buy anything other than an MDF frame. You can get MDF ones really cheap off Amazon. They look fine, but they don't have that X factor. I think for that X factor, you need to use wood and ideally glass. But if you're selling prints in a frame, glass is difficult to ship. So there are some pretty good acrylic plastics around as well. I've started making my own frames because of the fact they're so expensive. It's been a sort of hobby on the side of my photography that's added to my photography, and it's just been a whole cool thing to do as well. But yeah, framing's expensive. That's why I'm a big fan of either just pinning them or blue tacking them to the wall as prints, or using a sort of board mount. And if you use a good printer, a good online printer, then they do that perfect. Then size. That's the exciting one. Scale. I'm pretty much in the camp of bigger is better, I think. I made this print here, which was 3.5 meters long. That's silly big. It was amazing. It's probably the best print I've ever made. But as you get into that sort of scale and that sort of size, convenience leaps out of the window. And it just becomes impossible to do anything with it. And that is still sat in a tube in my house. I think I've settled on A2 just being a fantastic size, or A3 plus if you've got one of the smaller printers. They're both beautiful sizes. They would look good in any house, in any size room, especially once you've put them in a frame. So you're sort of main photo printers that do A2 or A3 plus are going to be perfect. They're both great sizes. Right, next up is that consistency beats perfection. Perfection, I just don't think is worth chasing at all. Just make prints and try and improve every single time. Let's make a print now, because I think that's probably the best way to sort of show how consistency can help, because you're going to go through a workflow and you want to try and make it the same every time. So I'm going to open this image here that I shot with Mali when I was out and about with him a few weeks ago. This image here. And like I said earlier, shadows can disappear on your print if you're not careful. So mainly all I ever do is just up the exposure by about a third of a stop. I'm going to up the shadows a little bit. I actually want to bump the saturation a touch on this one for the print as well. And that's looking good. Make sure you've already pressed the soft proofing button down at the bottom here if you're using Lightroom, because then as soon as you press that and make an adjustment, it will create a proof copy. So it's not adjusting your digital file. It'll just create a virtual copy essentially in Lightroom, and that will then become your print file. Excellent workflow to get into. I've done that for so long. If you want more detail on what I'm doing here, go over to my website at First Man Photography, where I have a masterclass on printing, basically all my printing videos together in one place, completely free to view and watch. You don't need to sign up or anything like that. It's a full value for value website. So go and check that out. Right, my adjustments are made then. Just from experience, I know that's going to work well. And then I'm going to use Canon software to print that. So just open it up, make sure I've got the right size and paper selected. Then I'm going to hit print. Right, so after about 5 minutes, something like this pops out. I'm really satisfied with that. I absolutely love it. And it leads me on to my next point, which is basically to embrace the feedback loop that printing provides. Because as you start to learn about how to edit your pictures for print, being careful of the highlights, the shadows, the colour, all that sort of stuff, that starts to enter your mind whilst you're stood there with the camera in hand, in the field, in the studio, whatever you do as a photographer. It starts to help your photography, and then your photography improves, and that helps your prints get better. And the two things just work together, and over time you'll get better and better and better and better. And now when I'm out in the field, when I'm stood there photographing that scene, I was already thinking about the print. I'm out there making prints, not taking photographs. It's just a mindset that now I try to live by, and it's very satisfying, especially when you end up with a beautiful print at the end of the day. I'm going to put 2 of those prints up for grabs, up for sale on my website at firstmanphotography.com. They're £75 each. There'll only be 2 that ever get sold. So I'd love it if you considered picking them up. It's part of an experiment I'm doing for a future video, a big photography experiment that includes selling photographs, and if they even do sell anymore. Like, subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff, and I'll see you again very soon.